We live in a world of rules, laws everywhere, regulations for every breath. Governments release AI ethics charters. Corporations craft codes of conduct. Schools teach children what to do and what not to. But look around, is humanity truly becoming more moral? Osho said, "A man who lives by rules is not moral, he is simply obedient. One who obeys out of fear is not good, he is merely well-trained." Osho told a story. A good child is one who obeys. But that very obedience, he said, is the seed of slavery. When you obey without understanding, you destroy your intelligence. The modern world is built on fear, not awareness. We fear the law, public opinion, being canceled, losing our jobs, losing approval. And so we act good, not from love, but from fear of being punished. That is not morality, it is polished obedience. Osho said, rules exist because man is blind. If you can see, you don't need a signpost. But when humanity is blind, it builds traffic lights. Laws, religions, moral codes, they are like street lamps in the night. They help the blind not collide with each other, but they never bring the dawn. Today, we create thousands of new laws for AI, for social media, for human behavior, yet we still can't control our own greed. Morality that comes from outside is politics, not religion, Osho. Look at our modern world, more rules than ever and less heart than ever. We live in a civilization of control. Cameras on every street, moral scoring systems, algorithms that flag unacceptable words. Osho said, when the law enters, love leaves. The more rules we create, the less we dare to be real. We live like obedient machines, not living souls. A world without crime, perhaps, but also a world without compassion. Because true goodness cannot be programmed, it can only arise from awareness. A man once asked Osho, "How can I live a moral life?" Osho replied, "Don't live morally, live consciously. If you are aware, you cannot do wrong, not because you fear consequences, but because you understand. But when you live only by rules, you do right without knowing why. And when no one watches, you fall back into unconsciousness, because rules never reach the soul." In 2025, the world debates AI ethics. Can a machine tell right from wrong? Can technology ever be moral? If Osho were alive, he would laugh softly. How can a machine be moral when even man is not? We are teaching machines to act righteously, while humans still live by programming. AI doesn't lack morality. It merely mirrors the moral confusion of its creators. We can write millions of laws, but without awareness, those laws become golden chains. Osho said, rules are needed only for those who are asleep. When you are awake, you don't need anyone to say, "Do no harm," because awareness itself is light, and in that light, no darkness can exist. But the sleeping need alarms, and society, instead of waking them, just keeps inventing louder alarms. We live in strange times. Humanity has never followed so many rules, and yet never felt so lost. Everything is regulated, our actions, our words, even our emotions. A world that functions by procedure, yet drifts further from truth. Osho said, when awareness arises, rules become irrelevant, because awareness itself is the highest law. When you are awake, you don't need commandments to guide you. You are the light that guides. Osho said, rules are the crutches of the blind. Rules help you not to fall, but they never help you to see. Society creates laws because it fears free people. Freedom is unpredictable, uncontrollable, and cannot be ruled. So we build prisons made of principles and call them civilization. But even if you live by 1,000 rules without awareness, you remain a blind man walking carefully in darkness. Osho said, the man of awareness is a law unto himself. This does not mean disorder. It means self-harmony. A conscious person cannot harm, not because he fears punishment, but because he sees. Just as a man who sees clearly would never step off a cliff, not because it's forbidden, but because he recognizes the abyss. Awareness doesn't follow the law, it is the light that reveals it. Our world believes in justice by regulation. But Osho said, justice born from law is shallow. True justice comes from understanding. Look around. The scandals of our time are not lawless. They are perfectly legal. A corporation destroys a forest within the law. An algorithm fires thousands of workers within policy. Governments monitor citizens 24/7 in the name of safety. Humanity now follows every law and yet betrays its own conscience. Osho warned, when law replaces consciousness, civilization begins to rot. Decay begins not in crime but in the absence of inner light. A person with awareness does not need moral rules. Awareness itself is the purest form of order. When you are conscious, you cannot deceive, because deceit hurts your own being. You cannot harm, because you see yourself in others. Osho said, when you are aware, compassion is automatic. The law tells you, do not kill. But awareness makes killing impossible, because you realize life is one. In 2025, scientists debate, can AI be programmed to be moral? They call it AI alignment, machines that do good. But Osho, if he were here, would smile. A machine cannot be moral, only a conscious being can. Morality is not a code, it is awareness. You can create 1,000 ethical algorithms, but if the human behind the screen lacks consciousness, technology becomes just another tool for control. The danger is not AI. The danger is unawareness using power. Osho said, when awareness flowers, rules drop on their own. You cannot make anyone moral. You can only awaken them. Because when light appears, darkness vanishes by itself. When awareness rises, rules dissolve naturally. When love awakens, commandments fade away. Osho said, the awakened man does not follow morality, he radiates it. The conscious person doesn't practice goodness, he becomes it. It's not what he does, it's what he is. The world keeps saying, live by the rules, but very few understand, rules and freedom cannot coexist. Osho said, rules are created by fear. Responsibility is born from understanding. The man of rules is afraid of being wrong. The man of responsibility understands what is right. One lives in chains of gold, the other with wings of light. Look around you. Life today is guided at every step. Rules for traffic, rules for speech, rules for morality, rules for social media. Even public figures must apologize for breaking codes of conduct. And so people start living to avoid mistakes, not to live truly. Osho said, rules make you correct, but never alive. You can be right in every rule and still feel dead inside. Osho said there are two kinds of people, those who fear doing wrong and those who are aware enough not to. The fearful need laws. The aware need none, because they see. A good child is not always wise. He has simply learned how to obey. But the child who asks why is the beginning of intelligence. Society fears such children, because the free cannot be controlled. Osho said, responsibility means the ability to respond. When you are conscious, you respond rightly, not because someone tells you to, but because you feel life's pulse. The rule follower acts from command. The responsible one acts from awareness. That is the difference between a robot that obeys and a human who loves. Osho said, society does not want responsibility, it wants obedience, because the responsible person cannot be predicted. He might break a rule, but only to save what is true. Like a doctor performing surgery during a curfew. Like a whistleblower speaking truth in a world of silence. Society fears those who listen to their own hearts, for they follow conscience, not control. In 2025, some nations test citizen scoring systems. Every action, every word, even a facial expression is rated for proper conduct. People become so polite, they forget how to feel. No one laughs too loudly, no one cries too long. Osho warned, when man becomes perfectly disciplined, he is perfectly dead. Our world doesn't lack law, it lacks inner responsibility. We live legally, but we no longer live authentically. Rules are the voice of others inside you. Responsibility is your own voice awakening. Osho said, freedom does not mean doing whatever you want, it means acting with awareness. The free man does not act out of impulse, but out of truth within. Freedom needs no police, only awareness. But the man of rules always needs supervision, because he cannot trust his own light. Osho said, when responsibility flowers, rules become unnecessary. You don't need to be told, love one another, because when awareness blooms, love happens naturally. You don't need to be told, be honest, because in clarity, deception cannot exist. The responsible man never harms, because he knows whatever he does to himself. Society always claims it wants responsible people. But when a person truly becomes responsible, society begins to fear him. Osho said, society does not want responsible people. It wants obedient ones. Because a responsible person needs no master. He sees truth for himself, and that threatens every system built on control. From childhood, we are taught to obey parents, teachers, religions, governments, but no one teaches us to understand ourselves. Osho said, obedience is the foundation of all slavery. A good child is praised because he never questions, and in that very moment, the flame of awareness dies. An obedient person is safe because he never challenges authority, but he also never truly lives. A responsible person doesn't simply follow rules, he acts from awareness, not from command. Osho said, a responsible man does not follow orders, he listens to his own consciousness. Tell him, do good, and he will ask, what is good? Tell him, believe, and he will ask, why should I? Society cannot stand such questions because each one is a hammer against its walls, because the responsible person cannot be controlled. You can force him to work, but you cannot make him betray his conscience. Osho said, the responsible man is dangerous because he cannot be manipulated. He does not belong to the crowd. He does not seek approval. He moves like the wind, free, wild, untamed. And to society, nothing is more terrifying than a human being who cannot be owned. In 2025, we see it everywhere. A journalist speaks truth and is branded divisive. A scientist refuses to sign a false report and is dismissed. A programmer exposes a manipulative AI system and vanishes from the news. They all act out of conscience, yet society calls them dangerous. Osho said, truth has always been dangerous to those who live by lies. The responsible person is a mirror, and few dare to face their own reflection. Modern civilization speaks of freedom, yet invents endless ways to control it. Laws shape behavior. Algorithms shape thought. Social media shapes emotion. Osho said, control is the enemy of consciousness. Society says think differently, but the moment you do, it casts you out. We live in a golden cage, where obedience is called civility and individuality is labeled danger. Osho said, the man of responsibility is not a rebel, he is awakened. He does not fight the law, he transcends it. He is not against order, he lives in a higher order, the order of awareness. The rebel breaks chains, the responsible one no longer needs them. Osho said, the day man becomes truly responsible, governments will disappear on their own. Because when each person becomes a light unto themselves, no one needs to rule or to be ruled. When every action flows from awareness, you don't need police, priests, or politicians. There will be no control, only natural harmony among conscious beings. Humanity has written thousands of laws, built millions of schools, churches, and prisons, and still has not learned how to love. We live in a world full of commandments, yet empty of compassion. Osho said, when awareness flowers, rules disappear, love becomes the only law. Love is the one law that needs no scripture because it is as natural as breathing. Osho said, when love guides you, there is no need for commandments. You don't need to be told, do not harm, because love cannot harm. You don't need to be told, do not lie, because love has nothing to hide. When consciousness awakens, every rule becomes unnecessary, like telling the sun to shine. Law is needed only while the heart sleeps. Once the heart awakens, it knows what is right. Osho said, law creates order, love creates harmony. Order is imposed, harmony is born. Society maintains order through fear of punishment, rejection, shame. But harmony arises from understanding. In understanding, there is no me and you, only one living rhythm beating through all. Imagine a world with no moral codes, because every act arises from awareness. No police, no courts, because everyone watches their own heart. Osho said, when love rules, there is no ruler and no ruled. In love, no one stands above or below. No one judges, for all are reflections of the same existence. And in that state, the only law is, live with awareness and live with love. In 2025, the world begins using AI to measure morality. Algorithms score kindness. Machines rank good behavior. But Osho, if alive, would smile and say, love cannot be measured, it can only be lived. A machine may learn the language of ethics, but it will never feel the pulse of the heart. That is humanity's new tragedy. We are teaching machines to be kind, while forgetting how to love ourselves. Osho said, love is the highest discipline, and it needs no teacher. Love cannot be taught, it can only be experienced. When you truly love someone, you cannot hurt them, not because of fear, but because their pain is your own. And when you love all of existence, every action becomes sacred. You no longer do good, you are goodness itself. Osho said, the law-abiding person is often the most hypocritical. You can follow every rule and still be filled with hatred. You can smile politely while secretly judging everyone. That is the moral mask of our times, externally correct, inwardly corrupt. Only love can shatter that mask. Osho said, love is not an emotion, it is awareness itself. Emotions come and go, but love is the very ground of being. When awareness deepens, you no longer love someone, you love everything that is. In that space, there is no right or wrong, only the silent harmony of existence. The world is full of righteous people, people who obey every rule, say the right words, live according to society's standards. But Osho asks, are you alive or merely obedient? You can live your whole life by the book and still never know why you exist. Osho said, rules are for those who have no light within. A man with inner light needs no lamp from others, but the fearful always look for something to lean on. Rules are cheap substitutes for intelligence. We cling to rules because we don't trust our own awareness, and in fearing to be wrong, we end up living someone else's truth. Osho said, understanding is not knowledge, it is transformation. True understanding doesn't come from books, it comes from living, seeing, experiencing. You can memorize every scripture, but if you've never looked silently within, you still know nothing. Laws, doctrines, religions, they are only maps. Understanding is the journey itself. Osho said, rules protect you from mistakes, but also protect you from truth. The rule follower never errs, but he also never discovers. Every rule is born of the past, and those who live by the past can never touch the living present. You may avoid danger, but you will also miss the adventure of life. Osho said, understanding comes in silence, not in obedience. No one can teach you understanding. You can only wake up to it. When you are silent, when you listen without judgment, when you stop forcing yourself to be right, understanding dawns. It rises like the sun, not because someone commands it, but because the night has ended. In 2025, the world is full of programmed morality. AI learns how to behave correctly, and humans learn how to speak safely. But Osho would laugh gently and say, right behavior without right awareness is hypocrisy. We obey regulations, but lose the spark of understanding. We fear saying something wrong more than living something false. A world drowning in rules and starving for consciousness. Osho said, understanding brings its own discipline. A conscious man doesn't force himself to be moral. He acts rightly because he sees clearly. If you understand music, you don't need to force harmony. If you understand love, you cannot cause pain. Understanding doesn't come from law. Law comes from the absence of understanding. Osho said, "Be responsible, not righteous. Don't live by rules, live by understanding." When you live by rules, you live like a machine. When you live by understanding, you live like a conscious being. The righteous man may be respected by society, but only the man of understanding is respected by existence itself.